Hey everyone, Kevin Thompson here, and I'm going to answer the questions posted on my Ask Me Anything post. I said I'd do it tomorrow. That was a few days ago. I got 4 kids in spring sports, so that's my excuse. So we're going to jump right in. The one that always comes up, distributor rights and the legal limits. The Every distributor signs a contract when they agree to participate with a company, and referred to as the policies and procedures. In 95% of the policies and 100% of the policies that our firm writes, there's a provision that says the distributor agrees not to solicit non-personals for another company. That is the main provision that has the teeth. I think people really confuse the issue when they talk about non-competes. Non-competes are in a lot of policies, and a non-compete is a little different. It says you agree not to participate in a company, period. And non-competes are falling out of favor because it's considered a restraint of trade. You're restricting somebody's ability to earn an income. Now, in a traditional sense, non-competes make a lot of sense. Let's say a doctor works for a hospital spends a lot of money on an ad campaign building up uh, the market for a certain treatment, let's say. In order for the doctor to benefit from that arrangement, he or she has to agree to sit out for 6 months or a year or 2 years if he decides to leave. That's a non-compete in a nutshell. The FTC has seen non-competes be abused. They're in a lot of agreements where somebody agrees to participate in a program, but they're not really receiving a lot of benefit for that arrangement, and therefore should they be precluded from doing something else if they leave. And so a lot of companies are taking non-competes out. And in California, they're not enforceable. But the provision with the most teeth, the main provision, again, is that non-solicitation. And yes, it is enforceable. And so if a distributor, or let's say a participant, distributor is an outdated term because nobody really distributes, a participant recruits his or her personal contacts. Most contracts say that those contacts are safe. You can talk to those people. You brought them to the network. They belong to you. The company cannot preclude you from talking to those people because those relationships existed without the company. But where these provisions are enforceable and sometimes confusing is the people that you did not personally enroll. And the company would argue, mostly successfully, is that that downline genealogy would not have been known to the participant without the company. Therefore, those relationships are off limits for a period of time. So if a participant A is with company XYZ, has a really big downline, company ABC recruits distributor A, says, hey, come over here, we're a better deal, better pay plan, shinier object. Distributor, the participant has a conflict here. So how can this company stop me from recruiting? The reality is it really depends on how motivated the company is. How much damage can the distributor do? If that distributor can do a lot of damage, if that distributor has access to a lot of people, has a lot of influence, the company could send a cease and desist and then eventually potentially sue. That happens. And companies, they like to play both sides. On the one hand, when they benefit from big leaders coming over, they love it. They're like, hey, we want your people. We'll treat you right. And then when people start to leave as the company gets more mature, they're like, whoa, 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 wait a second. This isn't right. And they want to go legal. Now, I always recommend that the company be very careful before they get aggressive with a rep because it's a gun that can kick a lot harder than it shoots. Number one, it's expensive. Number two, the optics are not great. It looks like a big company picking on an individual, maybe somebody without resources. We had a case a few years ago where someone was sued based on some Facebook posts. This wasn't even for non-solicitation. It was for violating the non-disparagement clause, which I think is even a worse idea than pursuing somebody for a non-compete violation. And this person on his Facebook page had less than 20 followers. And on this particular post, it had very little engagement. It just really didn't make a lot of sense. But this post really irritated a distributor with the company, and the distributor had influence with the company, and so they told the company to do it. The company did it. Well, this person that was sued ended up being deaf, disabled. So you want to talk about something that looked really bad. And so when the company found out, they dropped the case after our firm got involved. My point is the optics matter. To boil the ocean, yes, there are restrictions when a distributor leaves one company and goes to another. They need to be very intelligent. They shouldn't disparage the prior company, because the more they disparage, the more that motivates and animates the company to do something. And they have to be careful with how they recruit. It's not really scientific. It's more art. So on to the next question. Donna Johnson, who I think is just phenomenal, one of the best in the business, asks, what are some things distributors need to think about now? Let me see if I can pull up her specific question. What do you believe are the most important issues distributors should be paying attention to that affect their future? I boil it down to, I've got 4 C's. Competition is the main one. I think competition is fierce right now. Not inside the network marketing business. A lot of distributors make the mistake that they have to compete against other network marketing business. That's not true. They have to compete with other e-commerce business, period. Distributors are in the business of moving product. And right now, it's very easy for anybody to just scroll Instagram, and they have access to amazing products. And I'm seeing stories on Instagram, sponsored ads, brands with stories that we typically see in the network marketing industry. It's, for example, a brand that I saw and bought these mushrooms with nootropic properties for concentration, for energy. Oh yeah, you click the button, you buy the product in 2 or 3 clicks. So access to really interesting products is easier now than it used to be for the average consumer. That's competition. And also ease of use. And so companies need to do better from a tech standpoint to make sure that distributors, when they reach consumers, there's as little friction as possible for transactions to happen. And a lot of these tech platforms are outdated. So in order for a customer to buy, they have to click a link, they have to create a user profile, they have to go to they have to add the product to the shopping cart, they have to go to the checkout, they have to add their credit card information, they have to check out, and then in some cases shipping, they have to pay for shipping fees. There's a lot of friction there. A consumer has to be really motivated to go through those steps compared to a lot of these other e-commerce platforms that are out there. And so competition is fierce. Another example is I was scrolling Instagram, and there was a protein supplement that was healthy, had some NMN in it, which is an anti-aging thing now. And you're seeing these stories being told that typically our industry was really good at. So competition is fierce. The other C is claims. Be mindful of claims. The FTC, that's gas in the tank. So if there's a company out there that is reckless, where the field makes aggressive earnings claims where they promise big money, and they're not in the habit of sharing income disclosure documents, then that's risk, makes the company a very, very easy target. So right now, and really historically, the FTC, they are drawn to income claims because that is objectively observable. They don't have to really figure out the nuance of the pay plan. It's either an income claim that lacks disclosure or it's a proper claim. It's objectively viewable. And so, with the internet, obviously, with social media, claims are everywhere. And so, being mindful of claims, being intelligent about claims is important for longevity. I've got commerce, which is tech, and I covered that already. And that's not really the distributor's responsibility, that's the company's responsibility to make sure these tech platforms are not just serviceable, but amazing, because that's what consumers expect. If there's the slightest bit of friction, they fall outside the funnel. That is where our industry is really not doing great at. We're not really great at keeping up with these tech trends. So commerce platforms, the tech, is really important. Being with a company that places a priority on good tech, not just outdated stuff that was used with 5 other companies in the past with the same owner, just washing and rinsing and repeating. And then also culture. Culture, that is in the distributor's control. And the culture is the vibe of the company. Does it emphasize product value over the opportunity? Does it exaggerate income claims, or are they honest about the earning possibility with the business? Culture is really important, and some companies are better at it than others. Distributors really need to do everything they can to be professionals in this business, to I guess, be measured in how they promote the products and opportunity, and be intelligent about it, and also train the people that they get involved, the expectations, the requirements. Culture is important. Some companies, they throw caution to the wind, and you see these crypto companies out there. They're easy to pick on. Earnings claims everywhere, right? They all of a sudden you have all these experts in macroeconomics, right? There's Ray Dalio, and then there are these distributors for this crypto company that are talking about macro trends in the Federal Reserve and the importance of having a diversified portfolio. And by the way, you need to diversify and buy crypto, and we sell these nodes that you can use to mine all these certain commodities like oil, and energy is going to go up in the future because it's scarce, and et cetera, et cetera. That is a really bad way to do it. It's not the money you make, it's the money you keep. And a company that throws caution to the wind will not be around for very long. And years ago, they could have gotten away with it for extended periods of time. Now the FTC is getting really good at initiating investigations, and when that happens, it's like throwing sand in an engine. The company, usually most companies don't even survive investigations. Then, of course, litigation happens at some point, and they don't survive that in most cases. So culture is important, and being intelligent about how the business is being promoted, and being with a company that places a high value on integrity, not just growth, but intelligent growth. Those are 4 things I think that are really important for distributors now. In order: competition, right? It's fierce. Commerce, which is the tech platforms, important. Being mindful of the income claims, and culture. I keep getting asked about Live Good. I'll be candid. I have not seen this program, but I understand it's some sort of subscription concept where people pay a subscriber fee, membership fee, and they have access to whatever. The short answer is yes. It's fine to pay commissions on a membership business. We've been doing this since the internet was invented. It's the membership itself is a product. Now, if the only people that are members are distributors, well, then it's a pyramid scheme. So there needs to be consumers that are willing to pay a membership fee to access the products. That's objective. And if you're a distributor in that company, you have to ask yourself, do I have customers? If you do, good. That's a good sign. If you don't, and if other people like you don't, clearly that's a problem. So I think to myself, what do I pay for? What membership fees do I pay for to access certain products? I've got uh, I've got one Inspirato. It's a travel deal. I've got access to really cool properties throughout the world. That's nice. I like to travel with my family, so I do pay a membership fee for access. So there's an example. Uh, do I pay a membership fee for access to consumable items? I'm not a member of Sam's or Costco. Um, Actually, I am a member of Costco. So there's an example of that. But online, do I pay a membership fee to access a platform online? And I can't say that I do for consumable products. And so really it boils down to consumer demand. Is it real? And are there customers? But yeah, in general, be mindful of the owners of these companies. If they've started and tanked multiple companies, there's a better than average odds that it'll happen again. So a lot of sometimes these owners, they'll spin up companies and they'll flame out. And if that happens repetitively, that's a problem. I'm not saying that's the situation with Live Good. I don't know much about it, but the ownership team matters. They're clearly growing. I hear they make really aggressive income claims. That's not a good sign. If a company has really good value, you don't hear about the company having a culture of hype and hyperbole. You just don't. You don't hear about distributors in Rodan and Fields hyping the opportunity. I don't see that, right? It's about skincare. So be mindful of culture. Uh, how will I lost my, there you are. How will AI affect the industry? It is so new. It is hard to say. Now, these are my thoughts on AI, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm by no means an expert. AI is that they're LLMs, in particular, large language models. It's gonna impact professionals a lot, like lawyers. What do lawyers do? We deal with language. What do these currently? What is AI doing? It's they're working with language. That's Chat GPT. So as a lawyer, I'm sensitive to what this can do for the legal profession, and the summary is it can make lawyers better. It can make us superhuman. So instead of having a paralegal go through massive troves of discovery documents, certain files can be pulled out of thousands of pages based on a few prompts. So it can make professionals more efficient. That's not really relevant for you guys. For distributors, it just makes the FTC's job exponentially harder. The FTC was invented in an era when there were very few opportunities for publication. Brands were created. Those brands had control over the advertising, over the messaging, and messages were distributed via newspaper, magazines. Pretty simple to regulate that sort of environment. Just like the SEC was invented in the 30s, different era. Well, then you have the internet. And now everybody is an advertiser. Every human being is an advertiser. So I think the economic reality that we're in has really outpaced the FTC's ability to regulate. And they're struggling, massively struggling. They pretend like everything's fine. They'll never say, oh my God, we're overwhelmed. We can't keep up with these technology trends. They'll never say that. But the reality is they are inundated with advertising, with inappropriate advertising claims all over the place. So that they look for clusters. They look for companies that are really bad from a marketing standpoint, and they use their Section 5 power, which that's this broad statute that prohibits people from making false and misleading claims. They use that statute to say this company has a pattern of creating misleading content or having the business model is misleading, i.e., it's a pyramid scheme. The FTC will go for companies that they want to make an example out of individual companies trying to send a signal to the market. Think of it like you have an infection on a let's say you get germs on a table, and you just kind of you want to target the dirtiest spot, and they try to clean that, hoping that the rest of the field finds religion and gets their house in order, right? It's an oversimplification. But an example would be, the FTC could have sued anybody, and they sued Vima in 2014, which was a very notable company. I didn't think Vima was a pyramid scheme. Still don't think that, and they're not. I mean, they're under an FTC. Well, they're under a monitor right now, and they're doing okay. If they were a pyramid scheme, it would have just dissolved and gone out of business. Same with Herbalife. If it was a pyramid scheme, it would have, under their current requirements now, the FTC settled with Herbalife. Herbalife had to change their model. Herbalife continued to grow after the settlement. Not a pyramid scheme. Still, I digress. They choose these notable companies to send a signal to the rest of the industry. Neora is an example. Neora, not a bad company. There are 1,000 other companies that could have been sued for good reason. They chose Neora, and we're waiting on that decision. So the point is, the FTC is overwhelmed. Now you layer AI, and you're going to have an explosion of quote unquote misinformation. And it's not even going to come from human beings. It's going to come from bots. So the FTC's job is just stupid right now. How are they going to regulate machines advertising? Good luck with that. And so how does that affect our industry? I think it makes our industry less interesting, really. I mean, we're just a flea on the back of a horse's ass compared to all the commerce happening in America and all the advertising that's happening in America. There's a lot of bad stuff, and it's about to get worse. So personally, I think the FTC, with their limited resources, we're not a priority. Much to the chagrin of critics, right? They'd love the FTC to just waste a ton of time and money suing companies selling energy drinks at $2.50 when the market says the energy drink is worth $2, right? They want the FTC to shut it all down, to initiate litigation and expend government resources to shut it all down. And that's not going to happen. So I think AI makes the government's job harder. Is it good or bad for the industry, for distributors? Can distributors use AI? Yes, but I think we're probably 1 year away from companies providing these tools to distributors, to where, for example, there's a tool out there called Jasper, where you can sort of put in a few prompts. I want to do a social media post that can potentially go viral about this skincare product and you put in a certain bullets. It'll create content. I think we're about 1 year away from that sort of tool being generally available to distributors. And so it will be helpful. Will it help with sales? Probably. A lot of people have a hard time creating content. So AI will make creating content easier. So absolutely, it's going to, companies need to be sprinting to make that tool available because, first mover advantage, whoever makes it available first, I think is going to soak up a lot of distributor attention because it'll be easier to build. It'll be easier to market. So yeah, I think AI is a massively important deal. In my legal business, I'm pretty excited about it. So we use Box.com for our file storage system. We don't use a server. And a server is just a folder in the cloud somewhere. With Box, they've got an AI tool where you can have a 10,000 page document, and in the browser, there's an AI button you push, and you can ask this thing questions about the document. What are the 5 key takeaways of this 10,000 page document? Or can you highlight where this document references, privileged information, for example? It's pretty incredible. So yeah, it's coming, but not quite here yet. Some people will get excited and say, "Oh, it's here, and I know how to do it, and pay me $20 and I'll teach you." Fine, but I think we're about, candidly, 1 year away from that being available to folks in the industry. Current politics in the FTC. So, a little bit of background. So, the FTC is run by 5 commissioners, 3 from the president's party, 2 from the other. So, the FTC swings based on who the president is, and they have certain priorities based on whether it's a left president or a president on the right. Current FTC, yet 3 Democrats. The 2 Republicans have resigned out of frustration. Apparently, the FTC is not a fun place to work at. People do not like the chairperson that's there now. Not just based on her priorities, but just apparently based on this person's leadership style. Anyway, the FTC feels a little dysfunctional at the moment. The current FTC lacks respect for the law. So, there was a Supreme Court decision that came out a year ago, a significant case, where for decades the FTC, they would sue a company and they'd get monetary fines. They'd get monetary penalties. They would force these companies to disgorge profits. So whatever they made, they had to give it up. Well, the problem was the law said that the FTC could get injunctive relief, period. Injunctive relief means behavioral change. Shut it down. Didn't say anything about money. So the Supreme Court, capital S, capital C, unanimously, 9-0, said that's inappropriate. So the FTC did not have a single friend on the court, even amongst the liberal justices. So for my left-leaning friends that say, well, it's a radical Supreme Court, not even the liberal Supreme Court justices, not even Sotomayor or anybody else. I'm drawing a blank on the other female that's on the court right now. It's late at night, and the coffee's worn off. Not even they found reason to say that the FTC could continue with this practice. Instead of respecting the other branch of government, which constitutionally checks and balances, go back to your social studies classes in middle school, the FTC says, well, the Supreme Court decided to side with scammers. That was pathetic. So that really tells you a lot about the current setup of the FTC. They're motivated by a worldview, by an ideology, and they were frustrated by that case. So why do I bring that up? We're dealing with an FTC that's not afraid to take aggressive positions to pursue an agenda. And we're seeing it with this whole thing called, and I don't want to bore you with the details, that's not the point of this live, but instead of suing companies one at a time, because again, the FTC, they are constrained by resources, because there's a lot of commerce happening now. So instead of suing companies one at a time, which they think is inefficient, they're trying to do this thing called penalty offense authority, where if they put a company on notice of wrongdoing, that they can then pursue damages in the future. And they say, hey, we told you, and under this law from the 80s, now we can get you for damages. And so what they did was they sent a letter to every single company in the industry, hundreds of letters. It's like spam. And they didn't even reference anything in particular. They said, hey, it's inappropriate to make misleading income claims, or it's inappropriate to make product claims without substantiation. Well, no kidding. Right? That's like sending a letter to people saying it's illegal to drive drunk. Okay. So they put the whole industry on notice, and we have yet to see them use this new power to pursue companies, but they're going to try. And then there's an academic argument about whether that is constitutional, but that's not going to stop this FTC. So we've got a different FTC, but back to my earlier point, they've got other priorities, I think. They got their hands full trying to regulate Facebook and Google and privacy and cybersecurity and now AI. Where does network marketing fit into all this? It cannot possibly be a priority. And then you got crypto scams out there sucking billions of dollars out of people. So instead of targeting Success by Health, which was that was a company they sued and it took years of litigation, I don't even know what that company made, like $10 million in a year, and they were selling health and wellness products. I can't imagine that being uh, uh, a habit of the FTC. I can't see them doing that a lot. It'd be a massive waste of limited manpower. So on to the next one. Let me see what questions we have here in real time, because I got a few people here. Okay, let's see. Let's see. I got a lot of comments here. Okay. For those of you that are listening live, go ahead and ping me with questions, and let's see if we can have some fun here. Crypto scams. You know, I like crypto. I like Bitcoin. I like Ethereum. Full disclosure, I run a node and I stake Ether. So I like it. I'm not all in, but I like owning something myself outside of traditional finance. So I'm not giving financial advice, but that's just my personal opinion. I've got a 401k, I've got a 529. I do traditional finance, I've got real estate. But what if the Federal Reserve just blows it all up and it's and we have a problem? I kind of want to own something else, and I like the narrative behind Bitcoin scarcity, like gold. I get it. I also like Ethereum as sort of a new way to run or a new infrastructure for financial services. Potentially, it's not there yet, but it's primordial soup. It's my choice as as an American citizen. It's almost like speech. You know, it's almost like the Second Amendment. The right, instead of the right to bear arms, I like the right to bear assets. Now, federal government has a hard time dealing with this because in order for the economy to function smoothly, it works better when everybody has all the resources in traditional finance. And so, you know, money's in banks. Banks can then collateralize that and extend credit to the market, and they can then pull from the Fed based on what they have on deposit. Banks can buy government debt. So the government really wants people inside. And for that reason, I kind of like owning stuff outside. I digress. I say that because I understand crypto more than the average attorney does. Now, when you have a company that says, we have a special track for this special token, it's bullshit. Because the point of crypto is to be open, where anybody can participate. Bitcoin, you want to run you want to run a mining operation, you can. You don't need permission. You don't need to go through a company to do that. Same with Ethereum. Anybody can run a validator. So when you have a company say, well, we have special software for this special blockchain, it's bullshit. And part of me as a lawyer, I want to hedge and say, more often than not, it's bullshit. I'm not even going to do that. And so the whole point of crypto is to be decentralized. If a company has an enterprise around a token, it is not decentralized, it is centralized. And you run into problems with the SEC. Now, maybe it's doing a real thing. Maybe there's a real blockchain and maybe there's real mining happening. Maybe these tokens are real. But when you layer a network marketing pay plan to it, where average folks like you and I are motivated to talk our bags and promote these tokens, well, all of a sudden it can very much become a security. And instead of getting into the technical analysis of what a security is, well, I'll give you the elements. Um, it comes from the Howey test or the Howey case, which is a case from the 40s, where when in doubt, the SEC has this litmus test to determine if something is a security or not. There's an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit from other people. And so using that test in a network marketing context, are you spending money? Sure. Does that money, is it being leveraged by somebody else? Is it going to an enterprise? Ethereum arguably isn't a security because there is no central authority running the thing. It is sufficiently decentralized. Now, Bitcoin maximalists will argue that that's not true, but let's just assume that it is. With most tokens, or particularly tokens promoted by network marketing companies, there's a central entity somewhere with a lot of control. And the third element is there an expectation of passive return? Are people spending money hoping that they put in $10, they can pull out 12? And really that last element is the most important one. Are people spending money hoping to make more? It's the consumer expectation. And I have yet to see a network marketing company sell a token where consumers aren't YOLOing into it hoping to earn more. And so we've seen an evolution in our industry with how it deals with crypto. In the early days, it was very unsophisticated. It was one coin. It was, we have our own coin and we set the price. And you buy it at 20 cents, but as demand grows, it'll be worth 30 cents. And if you want to pull it out, we've got all these withdrawal limits and et cetera, et cetera. Well, demand growing was new dollars in the door Ponzi scheme. So models evolved and it was, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to do cloud mining. So give us your money, we'll mine Bitcoin for you. You don't know how to do it. Most people don't. These companies would then take that money, ostensibly they'd run a cloud mining operation and they'd give you a pro rata return on what that machine's generated. In the unsophisticated situation, they weren't mining at all, or they oversold what their machines were generating, and those were Ponzi schemes. And in the best of circumstances, they did take money and put it to work in a mining operation and shared Bitcoin with the users. Well, in that scenario, it's been considered to be a security because you're giving somebody money and they're managing it for you. So, yet the industry, entrepreneurs are clever and lawyers can be stupid. And if you pay the right lawyer that might not really understand the space, they're like, oh, sure, in theory, you could do it this unique way. Now you're seeing this, it's nodes. That's the new thing now. This company will sell node software that you take and you run the node on your computer, and it runs the network, and you're rewarded as a node operator by receiving tokens. And we've seen the SEC sue somebody or sue a company for that very thing, saying that, in a nutshell, it's bullshit, right? It's a central entity controlling the blockchain. People are buying. You can't say, well, they're not buying the token, they're buying the node. Wink, wink. They're not really buying a token. Bullshit. They're putting in X, they're hoping for Y. It's a security. So it doesn't work. All right, I can go on and on. I don't want to bore you guys with that. I think crypto's really run its course through our industry as far as entities trying to create a business model around it. It's washed out. Doesn't mean crypto has no value. Again, I like it. But it has to be open. And if it's open, you can't build a company around it. Let's see. Let me look for some questions here. Somebody says, I hear companies need to have non-commissionable kits to get distributors into the business. The rule is you can't require people to purchase products as a condition to participate. There needs to be a way to join without buying. That's important. How do you think COVID affected companies? It helped the industry in 21. Things were hot, but of course, everything was helped in 21. It was an everything bubble. Uh, the Federal Reserve injected a ton of money in the economy. People had money. They had nowhere to go. So they were looking for side hustles, and our industry benefited. And some companies survived. Most did not that started in that era. Uh, right now, a consequence of COVID is inflation, and inflation is hurting our industry. People have less money, so people are more discerning with their dollars, and so I think that's having a negative impact on the industry, and that is directly attributable to COVID and also government spending. Uh, any input on the anti-MLM movement on YouTube? Uh, I don't really pay attention to it much. I feel like I know it's out there, but there's been critics of the industry for decades, and um, the content I've seen, it's so bizarre that it's hard to it's as a consumer myself, I wouldn't take it seriously, but maybe people do when they see it. I think it's a feedback loop where that sort of content attracts people that are looking for that sort of content, so they're almost they're talking in an echo chamber. So I haven't seen significant impact on that. Now the people that the critics they point to it as success, but that's just confirmation bias. That's just that they're trying to feel good about the energy they're spending. So I, I really that would be a question for a leader in the field for their experience with how that affects them building the business. But as a lawyer, it's it feels a lot like I'm going to say it like just self pleasure. It just these people are just they're entertaining themselves. Uh, I guess virtue signaling as a way to protect consumers, but really they're just going for clicks and views and monetizing their content on YouTube. But hey, there's a market for that, and they're being paid for it, so you're going to get more of it if there's a market for it. But is that slowing the industry? No. I think what's the main thing that hurts the industry is fatigue, where you need promises made and promises kept. That's a good brand. There's just a lot of hit and run companies, and consumers are tired of it. They don't need to go to YouTube to hear about it. They experience it, and once they've been burned once, they're not going to join another company. So market fatigue is the real, I think, headwind in the industry. And of course, what I said earlier, competition. Let's see if I have any questions here. Let's see. Let's see. DSN rankings. What are my thoughts on rankings? I don't really pay attention to rankings. Direct selling news is not really good content. It's puff pieces. It's paid advertising. Not really objective. So I haven't really followed direct selling news for years. It's just a way for companies to look big. It's almost like being on the cover of Forbes now. Who gives a damn, right? Ruja Ignatova, who was behind OneCoin, was on the cover of Forbes. So it's just a way for companies are leveraging that platform to look big and sophisticated, and they can pay for that. Not a big fan. Let's see. Let's see. Any more good questions? Yeah, the question about the anti-MLM movement, coming back to that, it just seems like, there was a conference of MLM critics, and literally it's just critics talking to critics and congratulating each other. I didn't watch it. I watched some of it, but not most of it. And the speakers are listing their pronouns, right? And nothing wrong with that. But when you see that, you know that you're dealing with a certain ideology that has an allergy to capitalism. Period. And so this model irritates the hell out of that particular community. And so they would rather people earn minimum wage driving an Uber than selling a skincare making good money. And when they see success stories, and they're out there, it's explained away. Well, they just out scammed everybody. Uh, that community will never be convinced that this is a legitimate way to sell. I'll give you a real example. Herbalife. For Bill Ackman shorted the company in 2012, and there was a resolution, I think, in 2016. So for 4 years, you had massive waves of content about how Herbalife's a pyramid scheme destined to collapse, and here's why. And then Herbalife was forced to operate uh, via settlement with the FTC with certain restrictions. And for example, they have to show that 80% of the revenue comes from customers. 80%. Now, a critic would say, well, yeah, 80% retail, that's not a pyramid scheme, right? The critics, they want 70%, really is that's their goal. That's their standard, which is really hard to meet. Herbalife is at 80%. Clearly, if it was a pyramid scheme that relied on the opportunity and lacked product value, they wouldn't be able to hit the 80% standard. They wouldn't grow. It'd be gone. And they've grown. Not a single, not one retraction. They just set their sights on another target. So it's like a bunch of locusts that won't be satisfied until it's gone. And with that community, you can't reason with them. You're not going to be able to argue with them. There's no point. So it's critics talking to critics. And the law is clear. It is legal. The FTC says it's a legal way to sell products and services. Can't make it illegal. Um, Now, pivoting to not just anti-MLM, but what the FTC is doing is they're making it complicated. So the FTC they're not providing objective standards. So if the FTC were to say, well, hey, we want to see 50% retail in order for you to be legitimate. Well, there's a lot of companies. I mean, Neora's at 70%, and the FTC said they're a pyramid scheme. The FTC does not want to be clear. They reserve the right to make it as complicated as humanly possible. So they can change their arguments. And now what they're doing is they're using economic experts that are critics. And they're coming up with complicated formulas to say, well, the reasonable consumer can never discern these pay plans, therefore they're misleading. And again, my point is it's an impossible standard. So it's an argument that will never be won. The discussion will be going on 10 years from now. There will be critics with the same exact complaints because at the heart of the issue is ours is a model that requires work and the results aren't guaranteed, and there will be failure, and that will never change, and therefore this argument will persist unless Congress passes a statute that makes the standards clear, which would require Congress to pass a statute. That's a joke, right? So it's the free market at work. It's consumers making decisions with their dollars and their experiences, and sharing those experiences. That, our industry is going to live and die based on the experience that people have, and it needs to be a good one. All right. I've been kind of going on here for a while. Any more questions? We're wrapping up. Wrapping up. Okay. Good night, everyone.